Hey everybody, welcome to G4G on YouTube. Today we're taking a look at Marvel Battle Lines, and we're going through the Avengers Endgame update that this game got several days ago. So there's a couple new things in the game, and there was also sort of an overall arcing change to the game that I'm not necessarily too sure that I like. I think I'll deal with that one first, and then we'll get into the end game stuff that's been going on in the game. So, one of the things that I've noticed overall in the game is that it seems to be pushing a little bit more towards greed lately, and it's kind of sad to see that happen to this game, which has generally been reasonably okay with that stuff before. When you go to the shop page, the first thing that you see is the collector's vaults. It used to be a supervillain vault and a Captain Marvel vault, and you can see the Captain Marvel one is ending somewhat soon, and the Asgard vault was added recently. So for these, you get 5 cards for only 50 diamonds, which I think is a reasonable deal, and you have a shot at getting some Asgard-related content, including a few things that I think maybe it's a little bit of a stretch to call it Asgard, like the suppressive fire and Magus and everything. But, you know, okay. Obviously, the pumpkin bomb delivery is not Asgard, but there's definitely a bunch of blue here, blues and greens that are related to Asgard, and then there are some that aren't, like Shuri. And then, of course, you have the Captain Marvel one, which definitely has more content that is kind of specific to Captain Marvel. But then you also have some fringe ones like Nox and Umar, which whenever I see this outfit, I can't help but think of Psylocke. This seems like an evil Psylocke. Now, one of the things that is interesting is the game now has like a team or faction synergy. And you'll notice this symbol over here, and you can tell that that is related to Doctor Strange. And if you look down at Captain Marvel over here, you'll see an Avengers, you'll see S.H.I.E.L.D. I actually have to check on what that mechanic is completely now at this point. I've seen it go off in game where it adds a little bit of hit points and a little bit of attacks to characters when they're part of the same family. And to be honest, I've always been kind of curious as to what the green thumbs up has been. I've always sort of taken it as a kind of a recommended quote-unquote card. Like they were saying, hey, this card is like recommended, but I was never really too sure what it was officially. So when I say the game has gotten a little bit greedy lately, it used to be that, you know, special cards was on top, and then gem recharge was much further down in the list. So I believe it would go like special cards and the packages. And then here, scrolling this far down, would give you the packs that were available for gold, like your daily. This slot right here where it has the 30 diamond collection premium card bundle, that's where this one used to be, the daily offer. So I feel like they're kind of pushing the monetization of this game a little bit more now, because they're burying some of the more chintzy slash free stuff further down. So, you know, it's kind of like walking through the mall, and you have to walk through all the super expensive stores before you get anywhere. Like if you want to get some pizza at the food court, you're being forced to walk through the entirety of Pier 1 and Nordstrom's or something like that. And obviously by forcing you to do that, I think it more likely draws you to potentially purchasing something, because you're forced to scroll to it. Whereas if all this was on top, and you're like, oh, I'm a free-to-play player, I don't want to spend any money on this game, you just scroll down a little bit, there was the stuff you needed for your daily, bada bing, Bob's your uncle, and you were out of it. Now you're being drawn into more purchasables first. So now that we've got that out of the way, and that is something that I've just noticed and wanted to talk about a little bit. I've just been waiting to get a quiet night around here to do the video, but we've got a couple of new Endgame packs. One of them gives you Captain America, and then the other one will give you Iron Man. So you are definitely allowed to get both, but you can only get them once per account. And when you get them, you get some horde entry tickets, and you also get a 2 crystal either Captain America team suit or Iron Man team suit. If you get Iron Man, on every turn, if own leader's hit point is lower than the opponent leader's, deal 250 damage to each to 2 enemies. So this is kind of like a poor man's Black Panther as a leader over here, and I think this could be pretty good in some of the more insufferable daily modes that show up, like the Odin Feast. This would, if you're able to keep him out on the field for a while, this will maintain a decent amount of damage. And if you're coupling it with Black Panther and your character's hit points have been lowered enough, you got a lot of just very indirect and passive damage going out there. This could be dangerous if you're facing somebody that has something like, if damaged but not killed, then do, X, Y, and Z, and that's where maybe this is going to get a little bad. Interestingly enough, no team affiliation. They do seem to be wearing the suits that are going to pop up from Endgame that are being called the Quantum Realm suits. Although they do somewhat remind me of those Guardians of the Galaxy suits that were not from the original movie or Marvel Avengers Alliance, but more like this one for Gamora. They seem to resemble this one a lot. I think it's maybe called the Marvel Now suits for Guardians of the Galaxy. If you get Captain America's pack, it's the same extra stuff. It's the only difference in the packs is the card that you get. When a leader plays an action card, move in and attack a nearby enemy. Now, be warned, I ran him on a deck last night, and he did move in and attack somebody, and he took them out, but it also created a suicide situation. So if he moves to somebody as strong as him or stronger, he's going to essentially break himself upon the rocks, and he might suicide. So be warned, Captain America might make a very fatal mistake when doing that. I picked up Red Skull a little bit recently, and you can see he's a summoner type, and the reason why he's 3 is because his summons is actually pretty strong, and the fact that it is repeatable, whereas all the others, you'll get that when you summon the character to the battlefield. It's like, hey, if nobody's on the field, summon this little pissant shield agent or whatever, like Stitwell and Coulson down here. It's only once, and they're really weak. I mean, that's a 97-97, and that's a 121-121. Red Skull, on the other hand, is repeatable, and it's a 283-10, which is reasonable. I mean, certainly beats these weenie deck, Coulson, Stitwell, and the Dora Malay cards that you get out there. So, of course, then we had the Captain Marvel events before this, and this card came into play during that. So this is what my super high cards have been looking like lately. She's the cat Goose is similar to Misty Knight, but I believe is a little bit stronger than Misty. I think I've got Misty in my... Oh yeah, yes, the Goose must be stronger because I took Misty out and put Goose in. Again, I still tend to favor a lot of cards in my deck and just kind of keep sticking with them. So my Iron Man deck is one of my originals, and I've got the Hellcarrier Strike there, Doctor Strange, Nick Fury, the target locked one. Diamondback is good for cheap early round stuff. Maria Hill. Hydra Squad Leader, anybody who is a no cost that has reasonable stats I like. Really like Cloak and Dagger. Her damage is getting up there now at level 4 that she can take out a decent amount of early game targets. This one is not targetable though, it's random. Goose stepped in for Misty Knight. I really like the Yaka arrows because it's 880. Not a lot of things actually live against that. The original Iron Man and Green Goblin is pretty handy. For my Black Panther deck, which is usually what I use when I'm trying to go through quests where it's like, don't let the enemy get a battle line attack. This is all about a lot of massive control. There's some early game cards there with Coulson Stitwell to kind of get control of the board. Captain America does a decent amount of damage in a huge range around him. Yondu is summon plus damage. Dagger is summon plus damage. Outrider is just a weak character to occupy the no cost. Loki does reasonable damage around him. Sharpshooter's arrows still a really good amount of damage. And Manape is another cheap one that has directed damage, although I think I might be able to find some cards in my deck that are no cost that do better damage but on the diagonals. This is basically about trying to control the board as much as possible. Now, this Thor, it says Thor because he was the original leader for it, but I've got Wasp in there now. This deck is one of my daily clear decks. Let me tell you how broken Squirrel Girl is. With the exception of certain fights where they say deal 1600 damage to the leader with a single battle line or something like that. If it doesn't have a... Oh, actually it's due for an upgrade. I think I will upgrade that. If you don't have a crazy conditional and it's just basically beat the enemy leader under standard conditions, Squirrel Girl is so fucking broken, and that is because if you move her and she executes a battle line attack, you win the game. This is on the level of certain Magic the Gathering cards that have crazy conditionals over here. And I guess if, like, I never was a Yu-Gi-Oh fan, although I watched the show, but she is like the unstoppable Exodia here. Just self-contained in one little card, and it sort of is fitting because Squirrel Girl has been known for beating Thanos before, so Captain Marvel, most powerful Avenger, take that. But you really, really need to develop a deck that has Squirrel Girl in it if you do own the Squirrel Girl card. And one of the dailies where she is the absolute best is the Sunday daily with the Odin Feast. Now, the Odin Feast, as you probably are well aware, has a lot of ridiculously strong cards in there. And Odin can really pour it on you in terms of the hellacious amount of strong characters he's got in his deck. Well, all you need to do is make one battle line attack where a Squirrel Girl moves into position. And by the way, this counts if she attacks somebody to move into position. You win the game automatically. And it's really very, just incredibly strong card anytime you have a ridiculous leader that you need to deal with. Like, okay, this one over here, Black Panther's got 8,000 to my, 2,200 over here on Wasp. You run a Squirrel Girl deck and you can cheese it so much. And hopefully we'll get set up for it. Okay, so there she is. And by the way, if you're not familiar with Wasp, what she does is that when you use an action card, she's got a chance to resurrect it from the graveyard, basically. And that's really handy if you run those cards that say they disappear after use. Now, the AI tends not to detect very well if you are kind of setting up the chess move of trying to move Squirrel Girl into a checkmate position. It tends not to really think of that coming. Like, it'll be like, oh, you know, he's gonna try and place a card there. Let me cut off what seems to be the easy battle line. But if you're sneaky, you can really screw around with the AI. Like, if the AI tries to block me right down here, I'll show you what the easy don't... Okay. Went for him to... Oh! Alright, so the AI was a little smart on that one. He, or it, I should say, really tried to screw up the win conditional there. I mean, it actually went for 2 components of it. So the AI might have sniffed that one coming. So, right now, we've got no real spot to put Squirrel Girl, even if she came back up in the deck. So we're going to have to make that that headway over there if we wanted to.
Am I forgetting something?
Put that there. Alright, so that sets us up for a battle line. I'm really, really hoping, at least in this fight over here, that I can get a Squirrel Girl win rather than a classic hit point win, because it definitely is a sight to behold. Because I truly believe there are times, you know, this kind of goes back to when you were young and you were like 8 years old playing video games and you're like, oh, the computer's cheating. I truly believe there are times where this game seems to pull out the absolute winning card that the AI needs to win. Like, you're sitting there and you're setting something up and you're like, ooh. So the AI likes to do the same sometimes. The AI is now set up for what I call the pinch win. I can put a card here, and then it gets the diagonal. I can put a card there, and then it gets the across. So, we need to try to find a way of stopping that. So we're going to take that out. Now, what I'm hoping to do is if I can get Heimdall move over to that upper left, and Squirrel Girl's down again. And they formed a battle line off of it. So that right there, if Shuri was Squirrel Girl, that actually would have been a win for the enemy. And that's one of the ways that you can set Squirrel Girl up really, really well. Put her in position where she can win the movement fight, and then it's considered a move, and she's got it. It's a shame I don't have the crystals to get Warlock back out there. So it means we'll... Ooh. Let's go for that. Now remember, don't get confused and think you can just drop Squirrel Girl into the winning battle line. She actually has to move there. So now if like that, yeah, if I just drop her there in the bottom row, that wouldn't wind up being a win. So it looks like we wouldn't get it. However, what the AI did with Shuri, that would have been a win if it was with Squirrel Girl. Interestingly enough, the dailies have gotten considerably more involved. I maybe am claiming that the shop is making the game seem a little bit greedier, but the dailies have gotten way, way more involved. It used to be, if I wanted to do just a quick set of dailies, I would buy the card, I would try to do the today's stage, and then I would do 3 of the spec ops, I would collect my quote-unquote dailies, and then I would bail. That's generally all I have time for when it comes to this game. And I also kind of don't like what they're doing with the auto clear now. If you auto clear once, you're then presented with the option of doing it 5 times or 10 times. If you click the 5, you've actually done it 6. Because you do the 1, and then you do the 5. So you wind up spending 6 clear tickets over there. What I like to do is I just click to back out and do singles. So I get my 3 and I'm done. You'll burn through your tickets super, super fast if you wind up going through your 6 clears every single day over there. So we have a new attendance one, which is only 5 days. You get 30 gems at the end of it, and you get a card, which let's see what this card is. Looks like it's going to be sexy. It's a duplicate. However, that I do like this card, and it is pretty strong, so the ability to ramp up the summon damage there, yeah, I'll take that. I don't use him in as many decks anymore, but that's pretty cool. So we have the 2 different Avengers Guardian stage, where basically it goes through what I believe is the comic plot of Nebula trying to mess with Thanos over there. And then you also have a clearing quest of clear it up to 4 times. And it looks like at 3 we get a Captain America card, and at 2, maybe that's Ebony Maw. I missed out on doing it for several days because I'm like, oh, I'm going to do a video on this today, and I want to run through the quest on the video. This way I'm essentially learning it on the stream rather than making it seem like, oh yeah, I know exactly how to handle this battle and I'm just going to demolish it. And I kept not being able to do the videos on those days, so yeah, I missed out on a few days of being able to do this. I still think one of my most favorite one was the Christmas one that they did, because there was some good humor in it. Much like the Christmas one, though, I will say this Nebula one is relatively easy. It's kind of hard to fail, because you do get extremely strong cards on the field, plus obviously what your own deck has. And I mean, you start with 3, so just about any deck you start with is going to have some decent power. And she just basically summons the Outriders. And it's funny because I actually did this with my Iron Man deck, which has a Doctor Strange in it. So it's like I was just bleeding Doctor Stranges all over the place. So if this Loki was Squirrel Girl right now, and I did this move, no matter the hit points the enemy leader has, this would be the end of the match right here. Because it's just a straight up hit point win, and it's not a conditional. Truly, Squirrel Girl is ridiculous in that respect. Now, obviously, if you are doing some live PvP, I would fully expect anybody with any good sense of the mind is probably going to detect you trying to pull that move off with Squirrel Girl. However, if you pinch somebody in where they're trapped either way, like, well, I can either block this or I can block Squirrel Girl, that is probably where that card is really strong. I don't follow the PvP scene in this game. Maybe there is a Squirrel Girl deck out there for PvP that abuses that. I don't honestly know, because I'm pretty super casual with this game. It's not like the way some people treat Hearthstone, where they research crazy decks and they do everything they can to make them, and, you know, burn through their essences to create the cards and whatnot. But you know, I find it at least reasonably fun, and I don't spend a whole lot of money on this game. So here you can see we get a lot of the Guardians of the Galaxy suits over here. and it's a kind of an even mix of the Quantum Realm ones and their classic suits. And again, you start off with a pretty good amount of crystals, so you can just drop her there. And she's going to Godslayer those two. This card, by the way, Baron Strike, this is definitely another one of my favorite cards in the game. I think it has really, really good utility. So more characters introduce themselves over here. You got a standard Spider-Man, you had a Quantum Realm Iron Man show up. The plot basically is, you know, Ebony is shadowing Nebula, who was sent to get the Time Stone, and Time Stone has plans to betray Thanos and go rogue, and she was trying to get all of the Guardians and the Avengers in the same area so that she can get their help, and Ebony sniffs it out and sends the Black Order in. Let's see, she is going to do 300 to 320, but it's not nearby. It's 260. Alright, so what we're going to do is we're going to do the Baron's Mark, because that will be strong enough to kill. And then we'll just use Rocket, who is free. That's sort of one of the things that always bugs me about the game, although it's not the game's fault. It's like when you have incredible cards that do like on summon damage, but then you have nobody to use it on. And you're like, oh, I really wish I didn't have to play this card right now, but you know, obviously you can always just sit there. And what's interesting is they don't give you a skip turn unless you're forced into doing it. So there's no way that you can ever be like, oh, I have this great hand, but I don't want to really use it now. I'm going to hold on to it. They don't really give you that option. You're like forced to do something if you can. And again, as you can see, Ebony is just pretty much stacked with Outriders. Black Panther is probably my favorite leader, especially on some of the more involved dailies, because I like that free splash damage that you get out of him when his hit points get low. Although I think building up a good action card deck around Wasp as a leader is also really handy. I used to have a deck with Black Widow where she would boost the hit points of no-cost characters, but I have not been running that deck in a long time now. So now they talk about Vision, having the Mind Stone, so now the Time Stone and the Mind Stone are on Earth. So it's kind of a mishmash of the comics and the actual Infinity Wars movie. So there's the two dailies, 1 and 2. And then when you're done with the daily, it pops you over to the quest. And it looks like I'm not going to be able to get that, because I think there's only 1 day left for me. So holding off, trying to get the video done, sort of screwed myself. We also have this Iron Man challenge. And then there is the resources one, which results in a card pack at the end of it. And to wrap it up, we'll go ahead and take a look at all that they're giving you for dailies now. So there is the Stark Lab, and there is the Horde mode, which I'm going to do in a different video because I haven't really experienced these yet. And that warning, whenever you go into the Stark Lab, I really want to read it and see what actually it's telling me about. But So here's standard roll call, special ops. But now you have like these knockout ones. And the attacks, battle lines. So they definitely seem to be throwing more dailies at you, and it seems like you can very easily stumble upon all of these with just a limited amount of playing. And then I even just got one now for completing 10 dailies. And there you go, you got some more. Knocking out an opponent character 30 times, 100 times, attacking 30, 100, battle lines up to 10 and 30, collecting cosmic fragments up to 50, which seems pretty reasonable for a quick daily. Use 0 costs. And that is a lot of dailies now. But hey, you know, anything that you could just kind of stumble upon doing standard stuff and just be thrown experience and, you know, a little bit of gold out, I think is good. And then you have the classic dailies over here that I never do, which is the arenas and the challenges. Mostly because I don't do PvP stuff. Does anybody know the benefit of being in a guild in this game? I have not tried to search for one or get into a basic one. I guess, alright, I guess they can trade cards, but yeah, if anybody's in a guild and knows the point of being in one in the game, let me know. I'd be interested because I haven't had that experience yet. So, there you go, guys. There is the endgame update for Marvel Battle Lines. I officially will still say it's fun. I mean, this has come a long way from basically classifying this game as a Connect 4 game, which is what it was pegged way back in its early alpha stages. Everybody's like, oh, who wants to play some stupid Connect 4 game? This game has got a lot more depth and strategy when you look under the hood. And it, you know, it appeals to the Magic the Gathering Hearthstone types. It appeals to a little bit of the chess types. And you know, it also appeals to a collector. If you're somebody who just likes to collect things and complete collections, you know, Pokemon, gotta catch them all, I think this will appeal to you. You know, it'll appeal to you. And, you know, any Marvel fans, because there's just, now, especially with all the updates they've had, there's just a ridiculous amount of things in the games. And if you appreciate the different looks for the characters in the comics and movies, like, this is what in the Marvel Avengers Alliance era we called the bellhop uniform, the classic blue with the red. But then you have this one, which I think is called the Marvel Now one, and I've seen Star-Lord with this kind of outfit too. And then you have the classic movie one, the Legendary Outlaw. You have the classic representation of Drax over there. You have Yondu more as his original Bowman than the movie kind. Movie Nebula as compared to the long-haired comic Nebula. So I just think if you're a Marvel fan, you're probably going to like this game, and you're going to enjoy all the different looks to things. And in terms of raw appearance and costumes and looks and everything, I would put this game on par with all the different alt outfits and everything that they had in Marvel Heroes. More so than, you know, any of the other Marvel games. Like, that's his movie outfit. That's semi-modern, and that's like ultra classic. So there's 3 very different Black Panther looks right there in just 3 cards. And I always think that's pretty cool. That's one of the things I liked about Marvel Heroes, was getting to see looks for characters that I had never seen before, like Thing in the Fear Itself timeline, where he had what looked like that shoulder parasite and everything. So, hope you guys enjoyed the video, and if you haven't checked this game out yet, give it a chance. I think you might find it pretty fun. Take care, everybody.